He says, a cleaner would rather be feared than liked. I guess I want to raise that question to you. Would you rather be feared or liked?
Being relentless means having the courage to say, I'm going for this, and if I'm wrong, I'll make a change, and I'll still be fine. Sport's a great analogy for life. Do you know what I mean? How you deal with defeat, how you deal with victory, how you deal with teammates you don't like, how you deal with adversity, X, Y, Z. That's cleaner talk there, boy. That's cleaner talk there, boy.
Welcome to The Power of Pages. I go by Ty.
I'm Mr. Fly.
And we review books that ignite your mind,
elevate your life,
and drive your ambition. And we are reviewing Relentless by Tim S. Grover today. And firstly, same content, new studio, big up the team at KOTG. We're here, they're helping us with our recording and the production, which we're very grateful for. And we're gonna level up the game. Yeah. Chris, Relentless. Who is Tim first? Because you picked this book. Yeah. Firstly, why did you pick this book, and who is Tim?
I picked this book off the back of watching a video on YouTube, and I like to think of myself as relentless. The person who recommended this book is definitely someone who's like a go-getter, very driven person. So when I saw the recommendation, I thought, I was trying to think of a book to read anyway, so it was kind of lined up nicely. Tim S. Grover. He's worked with some big names in the NBA, some legends, obviously Michael Jordan, everybody knows. I'm not the biggest basketball fan, but Kobe Bryant, obviously rest in peace, we know he's worked with him, and also Dwayne Wade, amongst a wide range of other basketball players, like top level athletes. The way he describes himself, he says he's an architect, or which one I prefer, an athletic specialist. Yeah. That again doesn't really say much, because that's one of the things I kind of, obviously we'll get into it, but I found it's to kind of define what he does, but I think he works on the physical and the mental. Yes. He definitely works on the physical because he's a trainer, he's very qualified, but then also a lot of his stuff is about the mental, which I think we agree, especially in business, in life, in things like that. It's mind over matter majority of the time. So yeah, Tim McGraw, he's just someone that has very, very high standards, has a hard work ethic. Yeah. He kind of gave me like David Goggin vibes.
We're the same, because I thought that as I was reading it. He gave me David Goggin vibes, like elite performance. He always wants the best, pushing for the best. And if we could describe him in like a couple of words, sports performance and motivation coach. I don't know where I got that from in the book, but I think that's the most succinct sports performance and motivation coach. He's trying to get athletes, specifically basketball players, to perform at their best and keep them motivated throughout their careers. Yeah. So, for me, the start of the book gave me David Goggin vibes. And I actually read the first 15 pages and I was like pumped. I was gassed. I was like, okay. And one of the days in the week, I wake up a little bit later because I go to bed later, and I was having a bit of a lazy morning, and I was reading the book, and I got to like page 15, or the first section of it, and I was like, I need to get up. I need to get up and start my day. Like I can't be slacking. This motivated me in that moment. I was like, no, get to work. Like
that voice in your head sort of.
Yeah, that voice. Get back to work. So the start of the book. And there was one thing, I think, in that section that he said that motivated me which isn't really relevant to motivating me, but it was the only difference between feedback and criticism is the way you hear it. And I love that saying. Yeah. And it was just one of the things that was just like, do you know what? Get up.
Again, like you said, it goes down to like a mindset sort of thing.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So I know, because the thing is, you got to think, he's worked with Michael Jordan. I mean, most people have seen The Last Dance, the Netflix thing, and you kind of know the mindset. People have spoke about him. So to work with someone like that for that many years throughout their whole career, he's definitely got a different sort of mindset. And I think that's what comes out in the book, because definitely you've got to hold yourself to certain standards in order to kind of work in that environment where you're with top level NBA athletes that are playing Olympics and winning championship rings and all this kind of stuff. So I mean, so making the point, because if he's not a basketball player, I think he got an injury which kind of stifled his career. But to get their respect, you kind of have to show that level where he says he's a dictator. So can you imagine like talking to these high-powered athletes? There's definitely something special in you, something that you have to do. So it was quite interesting. I think what he managed to do was push them to another level.
Yeah.
And that's harder to do. And he also mentions it. So when you're kind of at a top level already, if you've got someone who's down here and then they're trying to get them from a 5 to a 2, that's not so hard. But getting someone from like a 2 to a 1 is a lot harder. You know what I mean? So in order to do that, you have to be relentless.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You have to be relentless. I just want to touch on, because he kind of defines it in many different ways. He's got a lot of different kind of ways he describes things that we'll get into. But he says here, the one of the sentences that I liked, he said, being relentless means having the courage to say, I'm going for this, and if I'm wrong, I'll make a change, and I'll still be fine.
Yeah. And
that's kind of like, I definitely related to that, because you set your eye on the target. You're like, okay, there's gonna, they say on the way to, it's not, the line to success isn't a straight line. It's up, down, left, right, up, down, in, and whatnot. So I think you have to make adaptations. You have to change along the way, and that kind of tied up for me as into what relentless is.
Yeah.
Or being relentless is.
I think there were a lot of relatable things in this book for me. A lot of key phrases that really hit my soul and made me think, yes, that's how I need to be as a business owner to achieve the things that I want to achieve. And I like that he didn't sugarcoat anything, especially with the athletes that he worked with. And one of the things he said, if you need a pat on the back and a good job to get your ass off the couch, this is not the book for you. And this book was just, you're working hard or don't read the book. Like, if you're not someone who wants to thrive and work hard and you want everything the easy way, this book's probably not the book for you.
No, he's not going to sugarcoat anything.
Yeah.
I think as well, if you have read the book, he kind of breaks things down, or breaks people down, or personality types into different ways. So you've got the coolers. How would you define a cooler? Because he doesn't give an definition.
So he goes coolers, closers, and cleaners, which is good, great, and unstoppable.
Okay, cool. So yeah, a cooler. So if you think about this, is the way I thought of it. It was like, again, away from basketball. I don't know much about basketball, but I'm thinking about like football teams. And the cooler is a squad player that's there. They may be, but you can kind of replace them quite easily with another player.
But they're still good.
No, they're still good. Yeah, they're a squad player, so they have to be a certain level to be in that squad. And then you've got a closer, which is someone quite high level, and that made me think of like top level strikers. To be honest with you, certain strikers, like a closer, the person, if you need a job done, that's the one you kind of go to, and they're definitely skilled and definitely. But then you've got the cleaner, and it was interesting the fact he chose cleaner, because cleaners not necessarily thought of as like a high level thing. Cleaners, whatnot. And he said, the cleaners are like, again, using football's analogy, I'm thinking like the top, maybe a Pep Guardiola or someone like that who's just or maybe Mourinho in his kind of prime and whatnot. So that's like, cleaners the standard that you want to try and strive to be. I think definitely, for me personally, there were some elements of being, how he defines it anyway as a cleaner, that I definitely related to. Some elements I didn't relate to too much. But then again, I think he even says you can't be a cleaner in every area of your life or every part of your life. But so he goes through that in most chapters. You've got the cooler, and he'll make a sentence. We'll go into it like a sentence about what a cooler would do in this situation, the closer what they would do in that situation, and then the cleaner what they would do in that situation. So it kind of breaks that. I like the fact that he did that, because you can kind of think, and then you start thinking about myself anyway. Like, okay, who relates to that, or what example maybe was I being a closer or a cleaner or a cooler or whatnot,
And I think those words, cooler, closer and cleaner, they're just his words.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Which then kind of, because it's not backed up by any science, it's not backed up by anything other than his experience. So it kind of took out for me, a little bit of the credibility, because it's just his opinion. Of course, he's a man who's achieved a lot in his life. He's helped other successful people achieve great things, but it's his opinion. So what he considers someone cooler, closer, cleaner, that's his opinion. For example, which I wanted to come on a bit later, but I want to come on to it now while we're onto the topic. He says, a cleaner would rather be feared than liked. So for me, in business, I wouldn't rather be feared than liked. In a sporting context, as a basketball player, I probably would rather be feared than liked, especially by my competition.
Yeah.
By my teammates, you know, I mean, you want to be respected. But I guess I want to raise that question to you. Would you rather be feared or liked?
It's the context.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
Think, no, not in business, not really. Not really. I get what he means. I think
Yeah.
for me, respect's more than kind of trumps all of them. But again, like you said, it's his opinion. And that's how he's obviously come to that kind of conclusion based on his experiences. But like, I didn't agree with everything.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? And again, it's definitely his opinion on how he sees the world. But you can't really, and it's his book. So, do you know what I mean? Like, he could say how he sees it. Yeah, exactly. Say how he sees it. But no, like I said, go on.
No, but in a basketball context, I agree with that.
I'm definitely sure he's mostly talking about Michael Jordan in that moment.
Yeah.
And Michael Jordan definitely, again, I didn't know that much. I know who he is and stuff like that, but this was like a deep dive into kind of basketball, or Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant more so. And it was like, I think that's how they felt. You know, they don't want to be liked by their competitors. And you know what? When I used to play football, it's funny because when I used to play, when I was playing centre back, I'm not talking with the opposite striker.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk. After the game, we can talk. During the game, we're not friends. I don't want to. You can fear me. I don't care how you feel. But you know what I mean. So, but other players, they'll talk. Oh mate, yeah, like all this and that, and I'm like, okay. But that's how they get on. So I can kind of understand that. So I think this top level, Michael Jordan, they're not trying to be friends with the competition. They want to be. They want you to fear them because then, if you're fearing them, you're focusing on them more so than focusing on yourself. So, but in business, for me personally, no, it doesn't work for me. But
so. I don't think that works in many other aspects of life. As an elite athlete, I think it works. So we haven't even touched on it yet, but like, who is this book for?
Yeah.
Because in that context, as an elite athlete, I think you would
by
rather
who though?
be feared.
By who?
By your opposition.
Okay.
But then your teammates, because it seemed like Michael Jordan, for example, his teammates were fearful of him at times because they knew if they slipped up, he would go and have a go at them and make them work harder. So I think you said it earlier, respect is the ultimate word.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's just, I mean, that's how he sees it.
Yeah.
That's how he sees it. But I think there was a few things, like, I don't know, I know we're going to jump around today. We always jump around nowadays. So
who's this book for?
Who's the book for? This book is for people that are trying to find the next level and trying to find a mindset shift. Now, whether you're going to achieve that by solely taking this book for gospel is another question. I think it's down to your personality type. But I think this book's for people that are trying to push themselves. Or also, for me, to be fair, the reason why I read this was I wanted a bit of justification as to, like, I know I'm a bit relentless and I work too hard. And I just wanted someone to say, yeah, it's all right. It's okay. It's okay. There's other people. Keep going. So yeah, what about you? Who do you think this book's for?
I think so there's two camps, yeah? So again, like with all books, anyone can take value from this book, for sure. But if you're trying to achieve something great and if you want to increase motivation, this book is for you. For me, the ideal person this book is for an athlete who is trying to be at the top of their sporting game. Because, this book, for me, was all about basketball. All his references are about basketball, which you can take and apply to other areas of your life, but I think it's much easier to take and apply to sport rather than business as a whole thing, because I didn't agree with a lot of the things in relation to life and business. I agreed with a lot of them in relation to sport.
Okay, cool, fair enough.
So, that's who the ideal person was. Was there any quotes that stuck out for you?
Quite a few, man. Quite a few. But I mean, before we even get to that, he was talking about like the dark side.
Yes.
And I know, like this was like. It wasn't my favourite chapter, but it was a very intriguing chapter to me because again, it was quite. I don't know if I agreed with it. I don't think. I didn't agree with it. I kind of thought I got what he was trying to say. So basically, Tim Grover says that everyone has a dark side, which will be true. Everyone does, But then when you're, so we've been taught to be good, but we're born bad.
Yeah.
We're born relentless, but we're taught to relent. That's kind of how we kind of put it down. I kind of get it. So he's like, when he's talking about the good side and the bad side, a cleaner harnesses the dark side into raw controlled power. Okay, I dig that. Then he's like, he'll talk like Superman and Clark Kent, but there was no bad, they're both, I didn't understand that example because they're both good guys. Do you know what I mean? They're both good guys. Batman, no, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Okay, I got that one. You know, one's the monster and one's the doctor who's a normal guy. Well, not so, but I think he kind of romanticized the whole dark side thing. Yeah. You know, because that can get really out of, like Tiger Woods, if you want to use a sport example, you know, his dark side came out and everyone saw what happened to him, do you know what I mean? And there's loads of other examples of that. So, and I feel like, obviously the age I am now, I'm old enough to think, I don't agree with that, or I don't agree with it completely. But I think when you're a younger person who's kind of looking up to him thinking, oh, this guy's worked with Michael Jordan, and if you're trying to build yourself in basketball, that can be, I think that's quite dangerous to some degree. Do you know what I mean? I just didn't agree with it. I got what he was trying to say, but it wasn't really, you know, he says a cleaner controls their urges and whatnot, but then he also says like, they still go and do this, that and the third, and I don't know, it just... Yeah,
I feel like maybe there's some parts it was a bit contradicted himself. Yeah. But that part, I did laugh out loud in something that he said, and I think I'm going to say this to the audience, to the viewers, for this one, because think about the things that you don't want anyone to know about, or think about the things that you don't want anyone to know about you. It's okay, no one can guess what you're thinking. Or no, he says, it's okay, no one will know. Like, okay. So he's like reassuring you. Yeah, he's reassuring you that you're thinking about the dark side, and you might be thinking, oh, I shouldn't be thinking about that. But then he's like, no, it's okay, no one can get into your head. Anyway, that just made me laugh. I just found it funny. But yeah, that chapter, I didn't love it. I mean, what did you think about the chapters, in a sense? He says he doesn't put numbers on the chapters, and also in the tasks, because every task is as important as one. Without the third task, the fourth doesn't matter. So when he gives his athletes a list of tasks, they're all number one. I found that quite
I can dig it.
Useful.
I can dig that. Yeah, I can dig that.
I didn't like it in the book sense because, you know, you didn't know what chapter you were on, right? But in a life sense, I thought that was quite... Yeah,
because it's kind of sequence. So like, you can't get to step 2, you can't skip out steps. You know, you've got to do, so everyone, if you look at the end, everyone thinks, oh, how do I get to the end? But there's 100, if not more, steps before you get to that kind of picture. So I get it, it's a mindset. I think his mindset definitely pushed through this. I went into a little bit of a rabbit hole because I was quite interested, because I didn't know who he was before this, so I kind of watched a few of his podcasts, few interviews he's done. Okay. So he's kind of, his background in life before he came into this kind of role as an author or working with the NBA basketball players. His father came to America with a degree, but then his degree didn't really do much for him. So he kind of had to get like a low-level job. He had quite a horrid job, man. His dad used to dismember dead bodies. Oh. Yeah, like in a hospital or something like that. Okay. So yeah, but that's pretty much what it was. So, but then he used to see his dad do that. So that kind of obviously would do something to you psychologically.
And he did mention it in the book actually. From a young age, he saw. Yeah, his dad took him to work at like 5 or something, which is
crazy.
Crazy.
But so maybe that's part of why he's got kind of a harder mind.
Yeah.
But yeah, he, like I said, man, just speaking from his kind of own experiences. But I liked when he talks about one of my favorite chapters. So he starts most of these chapters, the ones without numbers, when you're a cleaner. So when you're a cleaner, when everyone is hitting the in case of emergency button, they're all looking for you. And I think definitely in my position as like a CEO or as a leader, people do kind of look to you. But then even in other situations, and I look at sporting examples as well, where I've been on teams and I've been like, okay, yeah, you know what? It wasn't necessarily me people were looking at, but I was looking at other people, whether that be the manager or the captain or just leaders within the team. And some circumstances, I was the leaders in the team. So I kind of like, that's something that's quite relatable. You know, like you're the person that people are looking to for ideas, or they come at you with the problem for you to help solve it. And this is an example of, so we said already about the cooler, the closer, and the cleaner. So a cooler waits for you to tell him the plan. A closer works on the plan, studies it, memorizes it, and knows exactly what he has to do. And the cleaner doesn't want a specific plan. He wants every possible option available to him at all times. So that's kind of how he breaks it down, you know. So the cleaner has the hardest or most complex role, but they just assume that responsibility. And yeah, so I think that's something that can be applied. And again, we talk about business, we talk about sports, but again in life, you know, if you're like the head of a family or part of a family or integral, or your group of friends or community or whatnot, it kind of falls out. So definitely in that element, I thought, yeah, a cleaner, I get that, and I understand what that is. Yeah,
I think cleaners adapt. That's kind of the ethos that he was saying. Cleaners, I mean, there's lots of things that he was saying about cleaners, but they adapt. And he gave an example of how he adapted in a situation. He had a kids camp. There were 500 kids that signed up, but actually 2,000 showed up, which the team weren't prepared for. They were panicking or whatever. And then he said, right, no, this is what we're going to do. And then he made it work with 2,000. And I know you've been in situations, not necessarily exactly the same, but you know, where you've had to adapt. I've certainly been in situations where I've had to adapt. And I found this book, it gave me, you know, a little ego stroke at times, you know, when he was describing cleaners and certain things, and it was like, yeah, okay, I do that, I do that, I do that. And it was like, okay, I'm on the right track for what I'm hoping to achieve. And a few things, you know, you're not intimidated by pressure, you thrive in it. And I love this one because I've seen this with other people, so, and also with myself. So for the viewers, I do a daily press up challenge or squat challenge with a few friends. I've done it with different people over the years. I'm still consistent, you know, 50 press ups or 50 sit ups or 50 squats or whatever a day. And there's a fine if you don't do it, right? There's a £5 fine. And I've missed a couple of times, very rare in the years that I've done it. But when I've missed, cool, I've missed, pay the fine. And he says, a cleaner owns their mistake, no justification needed. And I didn't need to justify why I missed, paid. Whereas when other people have missed, I missed because this and that, and it's like, it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter about why. The message, the thing is, you missed, pay the fine.
Do you think you're like that? Because why are you like that? Do you think? No, because I don't want to put words. Why do you think you're like that?
Why am I like that? Because in business, if you miss, you get punished.
Does it matter, the reason?
What do you mean?
Like, so let's say business now. Let's say you're going to do a presentation. So you do presentations.
Yes.
And you turn up late.
Yeah.
Does it matter?
Yes, it matters.
No, does the excuse matter?
Oh yeah, the excuse doesn't matter. Yeah,
that's the point I'm trying to get to.
Yeah.
You're late.
Yeah.
So and if you're late, it might not even be your fault. It could be whatever reason that you're late, but you're late. So you can stand there trying to explain to the person like, oh, you know what, the trains and this could be all totally justifiable reasons. Or,
yes.
You know what, I'm late. I'm not supposed to be at this time. I'm sorry, I'm late. Let's get busy. Do you see what I'm saying? So I mean.
Yeah. So. To go back to the question, why am I like that? Yeah, because it doesn't matter. I think, the harsh reality, the reason and the excuse for not doing something is irrelevant.
That's cleaner talk there, boy. That's cleaner talk there, boy.
I mean, what do you think about that? Because I agree. I personally, like, it's irrelevant. Like, you're late or you didn't do it.
No, I agree, and I know, like, I haven't been in any of your groups, but I know how you get. I know how you get.
You know how I am,
I know you get
and I guess hearing you now, it feels, and I think as well at times, it feels like maybe I'm a bit harsh at times, and maybe I feel a bit harsh, but I know, like I said, for my business, if I'm late to deliver a workshop, if I'm late, or if I don't represent myself in the way that I want to be, it can have an impact.
It boils down to standards at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? You've got high standards for yourself and then you expect them on other people.
Yeah.
Basically, do you know what I mean? And one of your standards is you don't make excuses.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? So, no, I mean, I totally get it. And that's what I mean, I think, especially if you're a business owner, I think you'll definitely relate to a lot of things in this book because even from the other side, you know, again, having a team, I expect results and I'm not that interested in the excuses if they don't. What I'm more interested in is, have you learned from it and can you assure me this won't happen again? You know, and again, I mean, like, things happen, life happens, X, Y, Z, but that's more where, I don't need continuous excuses. I need it to not happen again. Do you see what I mean? So, and I think, that's with the cleaner. And again, that's why I said, I think, when I think of cleaners in a sporting context, I think more of managers. Yeah. I think there are definitely some players that are there, Michael Jordan being one, definitely Kobe Bryant being one. What was interesting, what you said about Kobe Bryant, kind of off the matter, off the topic, which I quite liked. Again, I know these names, I don't know much about them, but he mentioned that Michael Jordan would kind of, in training, kind of dominate and show everyone he's the best and be the best and whatnot. And he said that could be quite intimidating to some players, because remember, there's two sides to the coin. But then with Kobe Bryant, what he did was the first, he'll lower his level a little bit just to make everyone feel a bit more comfortable and be like, oh, you know what, I'm actually on the same level to some degree. And then he'll raise the level. And I think, like, I quite, admired that. I thought that was quite cool because, there's two sides to it. Some people might be challenged, like, no, I'm not going to let him outshow me. They can raise to that game. Where other players, and again, this goes within the business context as well, other people might be like, oh, so intimidated, like, he's so great, man, I'll never be as good as him. I'll never be as good as that person. And again, that goes to leadership. Part of it might even be maybe adapting to certain players, because different players need, and again, sport, there's a lot of sport, one of the things I always like to say is there's so many analogies. Sport's a great analogy for life. Do you know what I mean? How you deal with defeat, how you deal with victory, how you deal with teammates you don't like, how you deal with adversity, X, Y, Z. So
winning, losing. Yeah.
You could be winning the first 5 minutes of the game and losing the last 5 minutes. How do you deal? So many different emotions go through, whether it's a football match, 90 minutes. I don't know how long a basketball match is, but you see what I mean? So many different emotions go through that. And that goes through all sports. So that was just quite interesting to see, okay, that was how Kobe Bryant kind of led his team. And
he said something to Kobe, I didn't write it down, but he said something to Kobe, like, I'm paraphrasing here, but something like, these are your family, like, you don't want them to hate you, you want them to be on side, so don't just go out there and be a bully or, get them on board and then work together. You can still be a cleaner, but, you want them to be with you. And I really like that because, especially in management, there are some bosses that are, driving their team for, success or what they perceive as success. Get results. But why is someone going to work for you if you're just cracking the whip or bullying? You want them to be part of the team. I mean, this is things that I talk about in my corporate workshops. So,
but it's funny because it goes back to that feared or liked situation. So you wouldn't necessarily want. So that's a bit of a contradiction there. Do you know what I mean? From him in that sense, because it's like he's telling Kobe, which is I think is the right thing. What he's saying is that you want them to you want to bring them along with you, but if they're scared of you, they're not gonna want to be around you or whatnot. So yeah, it's interesting, man. There's a lot of with some of the chapters. I felt with this book there was a lot of like sayings that you like slogans or like phrases or like I think this could be some banging like Instagram quotes or you know what I mean? or like things like that or tattoos or whatever you want. But it's like sometimes I just felt like he went off on a bit of tangent sometimes. That didn't really have relation to the topic, to the chapter.
And I think for me, some of it felt a bit repetitive. It felt like he was saying the same thing in a different way. It did feel a bit repetitive at times. But there were lots of things that I liked and took from it. Like you said, nice Instagram quotes. And also, he touched on failure.
Yes.
And I like this because it was talking about other people's perception of your failure. And he defined failure and he said, failure is what happens when you decide you failed. And, until then, you're still looking for ways to get better to where you want to be. So failure is what happens when you decide you failed.
Message.
You know what I mean? Because it's like say you failed your driving test, for example.
Yeah.
Okay, that's just your first attempt. We'll go again. At some point, I'm going to pass my driving test. You know, I mean, I passed on my second time. So the first one was a learning curve. And I think that's what he's trying to instill. It's not failure, it's learning. And he said, when someone else says you failed, what they mean is, if that were me, I would feel like a failure. So don't let someone else's perception of failure rub off on you. If they were in your situation, they would feel like a failure, but doesn't mean you are. You only fail when you've decided you failed. And it had, important message and powerful messages like that, which I was like,
No, it was good. And I think as well, what I liked with that chapter especially, he talks about his own failure that he kind of had. And again, it's failure, not to get how your mindset around it, but because he opened a facility, Attack Athletics. Where was it based in? I don't know where, but basically where it was based in, I feel like it was Chicago. I could be wrong, but I feel like it might be Chicago. And the problem he had, one, there was the NBA lockout, which I think the players went on strike, basically. And then as well, wherever it was based, because normally he goes to the players. So he'll get a call from the team or from the player, and he'll go to wherever they are, and he'll just work with them there. But he set up this facility, Attack Athletics, and trying to get players to come in. And then there was a few issues. Obviously, the NBA lockout was one of the issues, and the other issue was the fact that players didn't actually want to come. That was in 2007. Didn't actually want to come to his facility. They were used to him coming to them, and I mean, well, it's down to there's two ways to look at it, but that was something that he kind of admits that was sort of like a failure in the sense that, well, that didn't work, but then he adapted it and said, okay, well, you know what, I tried, and I moved on. And then again, it goes to his cooler, closer and cleaner mindset. You know, a cooler admits defeat, like we just said. A closer works harder, and a cleaner strategizes for a different outcome. You know, so using your example of the driving test, you could have just said, oh man, I've failed my test and you know, I can't do it no more. And again, but then you obviously didn't do that, and that's what no one should do. But again, when you're kind of in a position where you don't have an option to go again, you have to go again. You see what I mean? So see whatever that situation may be, and that goes from business, that goes, you know, definitely sometimes when I'm speaking to some young people, people more mature, people my age, whatever it might be, it's like you have to understand that it's your decision. Like you said, when you decide to stop, then you've actually failed, you know? Yeah. They say like with investing, you don't lose until you take the money out. So say like you invest in something and the money goes way down, you haven't made a loss until you take out the money. So you haven't made a profit until you take out the money as well. But you keep, you keep going. So I think it definitely goes down to kind of mindset and recognizing what you can do to stay in the game. How can you adapt? You know, all this stuff. Like you said, I mean, the message is quite simple. Yeah. You know, and I think maybe that's why it felt maybe a bit repetitive at times, because it's just about keep going. Yeah. You know, keep going, pushing harder, adapting. You know, and again, I liked, because certain circumstances I feel like, okay, maybe I was a cooler in that circumstance. Yeah. Wherever that might be looking historically. So if I get an opportunity to be in that position again, I'm not going to be the cooler, I'm going to be the cleaner. Yeah. And whatnot, so yeah. There was one of the chapters which I wanted to put in my note, chapter 7 or chapter 6, but of course, no chapters. But there was a really motivating end to the chapter. And I'm going to read it here because I found it quite powerful, and I think the viewers can take something from it. And he starts off by saying, it all comes back to this. No matter what you do in life, are you willing to make the decision to succeed? Are you going to stand by that decision or quit when it gets hard? Will you choose to keep working when everyone else tells you to quit? Pain comes in all sorts of disguises, physical, mental, and emotion. Do you need to be pain-free? Or can you push past it and stand by your commitment and decision to go further? It's your choice, the outcome is on you. And just messages like that, it's like, that's just real. Like someone reading the book would read that and would be like, I need to hear this. We all, do you know what that was like? Yeah. If I needed that pep talk in that moment, it was like someone
gripsing me up to the side and say, fix up, you know. If you want it, go and get it, because, you know, it's only you stopping you. And I think this book is about, no excuses, be relentless and keep going.
Yeah, it's a mindset thing.
It's a mindset.
It's a mindset thing.
Go on.
No, I was going to say.
If you could put relentless into maybe a few short sentences or a few short words, how would you describe it, I guess? Or
the book.
Or being relentless.
Never give up. I think that's the best way I could, that's the simplest way I could do. What about you?
Yeah, you know, as I asked the question, I didn't think about the answer. But that's a great point. Never give up and keep thriving. I think if I can expand on it a little bit more, keep thriving, keep learning, keep growing, and don't quit.
Yeah.
But I think as well, quitting, you know, is often perceived as a negative, but there are sometimes we should quit. And I guess I don't like to call it quitting. I would call it a pivot instead of quitting. So if we go to the driving, for example, it's like you don't necessarily need to drive, but you need transport, for example. If you really couldn't learn to drive, you might learn to ride a bike, or do you know what I mean? Pivoting, maybe that's not a good example.
It's like adapting.
Adapt in a different way. So I think that's...
And that's similar, like, sorry to cut you off, but that's similar to, like, with him, he had his ACL injuries or whatnot.
Yes.
You know, basketball's obviously his passion, basketball thing like that, so he pivoted. How do I stay in the game without being a player? Do you see what I mean? So how do I stay in the game without, okay, I'm not going to make it to the NBA as a player, but I can still make it to the NBA in another fashion. So that was quite cool.
What I would, as well, just because of some of the other quotes as well, and again, this is where I guess I feel like I'm being repetitive now, because it was lots of these motivating quotes, but what would you have to sacrifice to have what you really want? And I think, and what are you willing to sacrifice? I think lots of us have ambitions and dreams and goals and things that we want to achieve, but are we willing to sacrifice it? And I guess this is more of just a thought-provoking question, hopefully, for the viewers. Like, what do you need to sacrifice to achieve what you want to achieve? And are you willing to sacrifice it? And then he says, if they don't match, if what you have to sacrifice and what you're willing to sacrifice don't match, then you don't want it bad enough. And
I think there has to be, anything significant, there has to be a sacrifice. And that's the fact of the matter. Do you see what I mean? Like, regardless of, if you want to succeed in anything, whatever, you know, whether that means go to bed earlier, go to bed later, sometimes the sacrifice even might be things like spend less time with your family or your loved ones. You know, it happens a lot, again, with athletes, they sacrifice a lot of their youth so they can become and excel, you know, from a young age, especially if you've got kind of like a really good talent. So anything significant, could be financial, could be time, it could be whatever. I mean, that's a standard. The two go hand in hand. You know, and like you said, if they don't add up with what you're willing to sacrifice and what you want, if there's a big deficit in the middle, you don't want it bad enough, you know, because otherwise you'll be willing to. And again, some people won't understand it. They won't. You know, they won't understand. They're like, oh yeah, why, you know, you're working all night or doing this or working 2 jobs or working really late or not, you know, instead of spending your money on going on holidays, you spend your money on this or going to this, whatever it might be, it's a sacrifice. Anything significant, you have to, you know, because again, and then it means more. Once you get to where you're trying to get to, it means more. Do you see what I mean? And then you're also willing to, but then it doesn't stop there. It keeps going, you know. And before I know, I don't want to go on too long, but I was talking about this actually with my wife and a friend of mine, and then was talking about like the strive, you know, like, and again talking about, and it made me think about David Goggins and this book, because you know, like, relentless, it's never over, never stops. But then he talks about, you know, celebrations and stuff like that. So when you're a cleaner, you don't celebrate your achievements because you always want more. A cooler is the first to arrive at the celebration and last to leave. A closer will make an appearance, then go out with his own crew. A cleaner just wants to get back to work. Where do you fit in that? It's
changed, I think, over the years. And I guess I want to, when I think about that specifically, I want to talk about boxing. Because, I mean, I've had a few boxing matches, and I remember my first boxing match, and, you know, I was over the moon. And I was saying to my dad the other day, actually, that was probably the best feeling I've ever had in my life. Like that, just achievement after all that hard training, and then you go and win. After the last one, or the last couple ones, it was like, I went back to the corner, you know, I did well, I won both of those, but I went back at the end and was like, I could have done better. I should have done this, I should have done that. So in that example, it's how can I get better now that I got the first one out of the way, if that makes sense. And when I think about business, I think on to the next. I'll mention corporate proposals specifically. When I used to get a inquiry about delivering a corporate workshop, for the viewers that don't know, I have a wellbeing company, which I'm sure we'll touch on at some other point. I used to get gassed when I used to, get a workshop, and now it's just like, all right, on to the next. So I think it really depends at the stage.
In a business sense, what would you say? Where do you kind of...
Where I am now, because I've been in business a long time, or for me a long time, I think I'm on to the next now. I'm searching, continuous growth. Yeah. What about yourself?
No, I think because I'm aware of what's... this is what I say to my wife. I was like, yes, I do celebrate in my own way, and I do sometimes big celebrations, but I want to kind of... I don't want to stay here too much focused, and we spend focus on we've done such a great job because we still got so much. It's like climbing a mountain, and you climb the first peak, we've made it, but you still got more peaks to go. Yeah. So I definitely did relate to that.
I think as well, both you and I, over the years, have got more of that middle ground. Like when you achieve something, you get so high, but then when you lose something, you get so low. Now, if I go through negative experiences, my low is not that low, and my high is not that high. I've balanced it out, which I guess we could say you miss out on.
It's a good thing.
Well, it's a good thing when you experience the lows, right? Because you're not as deep down as you could potentially be. Yeah. But then you could say, as the highs, you're missing out on the that peak feeling.
No, I know you don't want to be on that emotional roller coaster though.
Yeah.
So I know what you mean. You lose a bit.
Yeah.
But I think you gain more than you lose. Personally. Okay. I mean, it's personal.
Yeah. Perspective, right?
Last thing I was going to say before, because I think we're wrapping up, but he talks about this is because the power of pages, the power of the pages, the power of the pages, the power of the pages. So this is the bit that was the power for me, and this is where and I relate to this, and I think everyone should relate to this. He says, I've accomplished and experienced enough impossible things to realise that nothing's impossible. And I felt that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because it's like, when I look at my life and and not only mine, I look around at people and I think, there's nothing, you can do anything. Like, so read the book, man. That's what I say to you,
the power of these pages for me. I think for me, it was reaffirming, my militancy.
Them fires are going up. Them fires are going up.
And I think it was, no excuses. I think for me that was the power. I loved hearing that, because like I said, I mean, I don't want to drag on, but it's irrelevant, no excuses. So for me, that was the power. That's what took. Right, let's wrap up. Difficulty rating and star rating. Your book, you go first. How difficult was this book to read? 0, the easiest thing. 5, extremely difficult.
I'll give it like a 1.5. It wasn't difficult at all. Language is quite simple. The chapters were a decent size, they weren't too long. The only kind of what made it a bit difficult was maybe the repetitiveness. 1.5.
Yeah, okay. Same. I'm hoping that we're going to be slightly different on our star rating, but yeah, for me the difficult rating 1.5. The chapters I could, they were short enough. I could blitz through a chapter, whereas some other books, I have to stop halfway through a chapter. But every morning when I was reading, I'd get one chapter. I basically read a chapter every time I read. So yeah, 1.5. Okay. Star rating. How good or not good was this book? 0, the worst book. We've never given a book a 0.
Sure. There's one that
and 5, the best book. We recommend it to everyone. I've written my number down here, so this conversation hasn't influenced me. Good.
I will give this book, I'm thinking, all right, 2.75. Awkward. I know. Because I was thinking a 3 or a 2.5. I don't think it's a 3, if I'm honest with you. But I think it's, 2.75. I do recommend this book, and I do think people should read the book. I don't know, because it gave me Goggins vibes. Yeah. But he's not Goggins. Do you know what I'm saying? So, and maybe it might be a bit of my ignorance, because he's not the product or the player. Maybe that kind of impacted my opinion around the book. Okay. And then some of it just didn't really make sense in some areas. And what I mean by that is, like, the chapter title will be one thing, and it doesn't really, it's just kind of goes into a tangent, see what I mean? But then again, I do think it's a good book to read, and I did enjoy the end of it as well. Like, the last chapter was maybe my favourite chapter. So yeah, 2.75. Yeah, okay. Well, I wrote it down 3. Okay. It just about got a 3 for me. And would I recommend it? Yes, to specific people. I think if you're an athlete and you're trying to be the best that you can be, I would recommend it to all athletes striving to be great. I wouldn't really recommend it to business people. I mean, it's okay. I recommend it to anyone. It's an okay read. It's easy enough read. But I think the ideal person that I would say, yeah, read that book is an athlete. So yeah, well, we read one book a month, and next book we have The Culture Map. Now, it's by Erin Meyer, and yeah, we'll get into this. If you'd like to follow us on our journey, go out and buy this book, read it, and catch up with us next month. This is The Power of Pages. And we review books.